This is a read aloud of Ashkii and His Grandfather by Margaret Kahn Garraway, illustrated by Harry Warren. Ashkii and his grandfather. Ashkee's heart was beating so hard, he was sure the noise was going to wake up the family. He lied as still as a mouse upon his sheepskin pelt. He was so excited he couldn't fall asleep. He wanted to be awake when his grandfather came for him early in the morning. For the past 3 months, Ashkii had been waiting for this day. Grandfather had promised to take him along for summer sheep camp when he had turned 6 years old. He loved his grandfather very, very much. Ashkii thought grandfather was the best sheep herder on the Navajo reservation. The two would be alone at the sheep camp for 2 weeks before the family brought fresh supplies to them. Every day since his birthday, Ashkii had asked, "Is it time to go, Shiche?" Every day, grandfather would answer, "Ashkii, you must learn patience. When the snow on the mountain is gone, it will be time to go." As hard as he tried, Ashkii could not keep his eyes open any longer. He was in a deep sleep when he felt something shaking him. He heard his mother say, "It's time to get up, my son. Grandfather and Blackie are waiting for you." Ashkee's heart gave a leap as he jumped out from under his covers. He was fully dressed and ready to go. He didn't want to keep grandfather waiting. "You must eat your breakfast," his mother said. "You have a long trip ahead of you." The boy ate the mutton stew and fry bread his mother had ready for him. He ate as fast as he could and then ran outside. There was grandfather sitting tall upon his beautiful brown quarter horse. The old man leaned down and pulled his grandfather up in front of him. As the sun began to rise in the clear blue sky, Ashkii and his grandfather set out on their journey to the mountains. Blackie joined the sheepdogs to help with the herding of the sheep and goats. Grandfather had said that Ashkii had trained Blackie well, and the dog could come with them to camp. The old man and the young boy rode along in silence. Ashkii wished grandfather would talk to him, but he knew he had to wait for grandfather to speak first. That was the way of his people. The sun was high in the heavens when grandfather said, "Over the hill there is a water hole for the animals. This will be a good time to have our lunch." In a few minutes they reached the water hole. The thirsty animals went right for the water. Ashkii and grandfather dismounted and sat down under the tree to eat. The horse ran off to the water hole to join the other animals. When grandfather was finished eating, he leaned back against the tree and said, "Grandson, I'm proud of you. You did not keep chattering just to hear yourself talk. You left me alone with my thoughts. You will be a fine sheep herder." Grandfather's words made Ashkii very happy, but he just nodded his head. He thought, "I'm 6 years old. I'm not a baby anymore. Big people talk only when they have something important to say." "Ashkii," grandfather turned, "to be a good sheep herder, you must recognize the 3 kinds of weeds that are bad for the livestock. They are called loco weeds because they often make animals crazy as well as sick. I will point out the plants to you as we ride along." The man and the boy gathered their belongings, mounted the horse, and set out once more. The dogs shooed the animals away from the water and led them toward the mountain. Shielding his eyes from the sun, Ashkii searched the countryside for coyotes, but he saw none. As they rode along, the boy kept looking for animal tracks. He wanted to learn everything about sheep herding. When he grew up, he would be the best sheep herder on the reservation, just like his grandfather. Riding along, grandfather continued telling Ashkii about the other animals to look out for. The bobcat and the cougar are enemies of the livestock, but most vicious and bold are the wild dogs. They will attack people as well as animals. This has been a bad winter for them, so beware of any strange dogs near the animals. Do not try to fight them off by yourself. Come and get me. During the morning, they met other sheep herders heading for the summer camps. Across the reservation, livestock are taken to the cooler mountains as they passed. He was proud to help with this important work of his people. Ashkii noticed that they were high up in the mountain now, turned to grandfather and asked, "How much longer before we get to sheep camp, Shiche?" "Around that little mound, and we'll be there," grandfather replied. The animals had reached the top of the mound ahead of Ashkii and grandfather. Suddenly, the sheep and goats began to act nervous and jittery. They started to bunch together as the sheepdogs began barking furiously. "What's wrong, Shiche?" cried Ashkii. There must be some strange animals in the sheep camp," grandfather answered. "The horse is sensing trouble also." The man had to urge the horse forward to reach the top of the mound. There in the shade house were 3 wild dogs. When they saw the man and the boy, they began snarling and growling fiercely, their teeth showing below their upper lip. The sound and sight of the wild dog sent a shiver through Ashkii. He held on tightly to the horn of the saddle as grandfather grabbed his rifle. Grandfather fired the gun into the air, but that did not frighten the hungry dogs away. "I'll have to kill them," he said to Ashkii. "They are too hungry. It makes them very dangerous." Grandfather dug in his spurs into the horse's flank. He needed to get closer to the shelter to take good aim. The horse moved forward. When he felt the spurs on his side, when grandfather got into the firing range, he said, "Ashkii, lean down on the horse and hold tight." He aimed the rifle at the dog. The first bullet hit its mark. The other dogs tried to run away, but grandfather aimed again and shot a second one. The third dog got away, but grandfather said it was safe to make it back to camp. "I don't think the dog will come back," he assured Ashkii. For the first few days after reaching their camp, Ashkii and his grandfather kept very busy fixing up the summer shade house. It had been damaged by the snow, wind, and wildlife that took shelter there. They had no trouble finding fallen branches to rebuild the shelter. But before they gathered the wood, grandfather warned his grandson about rattlesnakes that could be sleeping in the piles of weeds and leaves. "You may not be able to see them," he told Ashkii, "but you will hear the rattle when they are disturbed. Their bite is poisonous to both people and animals. You must always be alert. Sheep herding is a responsible job." Once work on the shade house was finished, Ashkii became a little restless. Tending to the animals kept him busy, but he missed his best friend, Chi. Grandfather would sit quietly for hours. Ashkii wished that they could play games like he played at home with Chi. The old man noticed the boy's restlessness. Having had 9 sons of his own, he knew something about little boys. He had expected his grandson to become lonesome for friends. Grandfather had come prepared. One morning before Ashkii took the animals out to pasture, grandfather spoke to him. "Here is a drawing pad and pencils. While you are sitting and watching the sheep and goats, look around. Draw what you see. The animals as they graze, the trees and flowers, the horses and other animals. Don't worry about how the pictures come out. It will keep you from being lonely. You will find that each day will be better, and you will become better at your drawing." Every day when Ashkii came back with the animals, he showed grandfather what he had drawn. Grandfather did not say a word. He just nodded his head as he returned the drawings. The boy had learned patience. He knew he must wait for the time when grandfather would say something. The day before the family was to arrive, Grandfather asked to see the pictures again. Ashkee's heart skipped a beat. Now he would learn what Grandfather thought of his drawings. Grandfather looked at the pictures for a long time. Then, with a twinkle in his eyes, he looked at his grandson and said, Ashkii, you did not disappoint me. Each day's picture has gotten better and better. You do show some talent for drawing. Someday you may become a good artist, but you have much to learn. You will start school soon, and there you will have teachers to help you. Ashkii, your words make me happy, and I like to draw, but I don't need to go to school. I want to be a sheep herder like you. I can draw while I am herding sheep and goats. Grandfather, being a wise man that he was, said nothing. He gave the pictures back to his grandson and said, Take care of these. They may be important someday. Ashkii could hardly wait for his parents to arrive. They would be coming around supper time. He wanted to show them his drawings, but when the truck stopped, his parents got out. Ashkii said nothing about his artwork. He was too excited upon seeing his best friend, Chi, sitting in the back of the pickup. What a surprise! Chi was going to remain with Ashkii and his grandfather until it was time to go to school. Chi was 6 years old also, and they would start kindergarten together. Mother and father had lots of work to do at home and could not remain at sheep camp. After supper, Father said to Ashkii, We are leaving in the morning, but we will be back at the end of the summer to take you and Chi to school. Grandfather will remain with the livestock until it's time to come off the mountain. But you don't have to come for me, Ashkii said. I'm going to be a sheep herder like Ashkii. I don't need to go to school. To his surprise, no one said anything. His mom and dad just smiled. It's too dark to show my pictures now, Ashkii thought. I'll show them in the morning. As soon as breakfast was over, Ashkii said, I have something to show you. Everyone looked toward Grandfather, but he said nothing. The boy gave his parents his pictures and watched them closely as they looked at his drawings. It was a while before anyone spoke. Then Mother and Father exclaimed in one voice, Ashkii, these drawings are very nice. What a surprise! How good it is that you are starting school. The teachers can help you become a fine Navajo artist. Ashkii felt too good to argue about going to school. He said goodbye to his parents and he ran off to play with Chi. Ashkii and Chi forgot about the school once the family had left. The boys were having such a good time, Grandfather let them ride the horse whenever they took the animals out to pasture. Although his friend was with him, Ashkii spent time drawing. Chi didn't mind. He liked watching Ashkii make his pictures. In the evening, the boys would sit around the campfire and listen to Grandfather's stories. Every night, Grandfather would remind the boys about school and how important it was. And every night, Ashkii would say that he was not going to school, while Chi would nod in agreement. One day, the boys heard the truck coming up the road as they were returning to camp with the livestock. Let's hide, Ashkii said to Chi. Then they can't take us to school. But it was no use. The two boys grew hungry. They could smell the mutton stew and fry bread warming on the fire. They ran out from their hiding place, making believe that they were playing a game. Boy, are we hungry, they shouted. The boys were leaving that evening after supper, with tears rolling down their cheeks. Ashkii and Chi said goodbye to Grandfather. They waved to him from the back of the pickup and drove off. He called after them, Both of you learn your ABCs and your numbers. Be good in school. The next day, the boys went to town with their parents to buy clothes. The following day, they dressed in their new clothes and went to school on the bus. They did not know many of the kids on the bus. When they got to school, everything was strange. Before the morning was over, the two friends had talked it over and decided to run away. They would go back to sheep camp. Ashkii said, Chi, let's leave tomorrow after lunch. Put what food you can in your pockets. From the schoolyard, they could see the mountain where the sheep camp was located. But Chi was worried. Ashkii, do you think we can find our way? It looks far. You promised to come with me. You don't have to be afraid. I know the way, said Ashkii. During the lunch the following day, the boys stuffed their pockets with buns and cookies. When they thought no one was looking, the boys took off for the distant mountain. They told no one of their plan. Each day after lunch, the teacher checked to see if all the children had returned to the room. When she called Chi and Ashkii, there was no answer. She asked the other children, "Does anyone know where Chi and Ashkii could be?" No one knew. The teacher went to the office to report the boys missing. Everyone searched the school grounds, but they were nowhere to be found. The principal sent someone to their homes, but they were not there. Ashkii's parents thought that the boys were probably heading back to the sheep camp. The search parties were sent out on the roads leading to the mountain. Ashkii and Chi had not gone more than 4 miles from the school at the time the search began. The 2 boys had started running, but they soon grew tired. Ashkii thought about riding his grandfather's horse and wished he had one now. That afternoon was very hot, and the mountain looked even farther away. Before long, the boys grew thirsty. Neither boy had thought to bring water with them. Chi started to complain, I'm thirsty. Although Ashkii was thirsty too, he would not admit it. The tears running down his cheeks, Chi finally said, Let's go back to the school. It's hot. I'm thirsty. I'm tired. Chi did not like the idea of turning back. Ashkii did not like the idea of turning back. Next time, I'll go by myself, he thought. I don't need to take anyone who acts like a baby. By now, they had eaten all their buns and cookies. Ashkii knew they would soon be very hungry. All right, Chi, we'll go back. Only, don't cry. As the boys turned around to head back, they saw dust swirling over the dry road. It was the search vehicles churning up the sand. The 2 tired and thirsty boys were happy to see the rescue party. The principal was very kind and understanding. This was not the first time the children had run away from school. He warned the boys of all the dangers of going into the mountains by themselves. You will not be punished this time, the principal said. But if you try it again, we will have to punish you. Despite the warning, Ashkii thought, I'll go when it gets cooler. The first week of kindergarten, the children spent the time getting to know each other. They played with toys. In the classroom, the teacher read stories to them, and they played outside on the playground. But Ashkii was disgusted. This wasn't why I came to school, he thought. I hoped I can leave soon to see Che. He mumbled to himself, I wish I was with Grandpa. I wish I were with my grandpa. Every day, Ashkii wished the teacher would let the class draw pictures. At last the day came. Children, the teacher said, here are the pencils, crayons, and paper. Draw any kind of picture you would like, the teacher said. We'll be making lots of pictures in kindergarten. Most of the children looked around the room. They were not sure how to begin, but Ashkii, with a big grin on his face, started drawing in a picture. The teacher sat at the desk for a while. Then she got up and walked around the room to see what the boys and girls were doing. When she reached Ashkii's table, she stood there for what seemed like a long time to the boy. Then she continued around the room. After the teacher collected the pictures, she said, We'll put the pictures on the wall after you take a rest. Take down your sleeping pads and try to take a nap. When everyone was quiet, the teacher said, Ashkii, please come here. With a pounding heart, Ashkii approached the teacher's desk. He soon relaxed after the teacher said, Where did you learn to draw like this? It's very good. When we have the school art show, we will enter your picture, and it should win some ribbons. With his big brown eyes upon the teacher, Ashkii told her about his grandfather. Grandfather gave me my first paper and pencils. He told me to make pictures of all the things I see while sheep herding. He also taught me about sheep herding. I did not want to go to school because I wanted to be a sheep herder like my grandfather. But grandfather kept telling me how important it was for me to go to school if I want to become a good artist. Your grandfather is a wise man, the teacher said. You should be happy and proud to have such a fine grandfather. I am glad to have you in my class. I will not run away from school again, Ashkii said. I will listen to my grandfather. I can draw pictures when I help him in the summer. And Chiche will be proud of me, and I will learn in school so someday I will be a good Navajo artist. The end. Our grandparents are Masane do Nihiche do Nula Esta do Ninola Hasti are very, very special people, and they encourage us to do our best, to be our best, and to learn in school as best we can so that we can have all the dreams that we want to. I appreciate you listening to this story, and we'll meet up again with another story soon.